Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Good morning. Welcome to the Audit, Finance, and Administration Committee meeting for Thursday, November 13th. We do have quorum, so I will call the meeting to order. In chambers, Councillor Cooper, Pauls, Wilson, Maureen Wilson, Councillor Crutch, Beatty, online, Taddison, and Alex Wilson. No ceremonial activities. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Mover and second to approve the agenda as presented. Councillor Beatty, Councillor Cooper, thank you. Any amendments to the agenda? Committee members, seeing none, show of hands, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Pauls, go ahead.
I don't know when to declare it. It's not an interest, but at 11 o'clock, I'm going to a groundbreaking ceremony at Macassa, and I have to be there.
No problem.
It's in my ward, and it's exciting,
Awesome.
the new bed. So
Thank you.
I'll be leaving at 10:30. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Just so everybody's aware, I have everybody's reasoning for when they're leaving, what time they have to leave, and where they're going. Unless you want to put that in the public record, I'll allow you to do that now, but I know when everybody has to go, in case anybody's wondering. Councillor Cooper, you want to let everybody know?
Yes, just
Sure.
put in public record. 11:30, I have to leave for a community meeting as well, so I know
Awesome.
you know, Chair, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taddison, I thought your hand was up, or was that just to approve the agenda? Beautiful. All right, show of hands unless anybody wants to. No. Awesome. Moving on. Declarations of interest, anyone? None. Perfect. Approval of minutes of October 23rd. Mover and second to adopt the minutes of that meeting. Councillor Crutch, Councillor Beatty? Good. Perfect. Any discussion on the adoption? Seeing none, show of hands, please. And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to delegations. Members are reminded that questions of the delegations are for clarification purposes only and not for debate. 6.1, David Serwatics respecting overcharged water bill. David, whenever you're ready, please come up to the microphone. And then once you're set, your 5 minutes will begin.
Good morning, everyone, staff, council. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to me today. I'll try and be brief here. I don't want to take up too much of your precious time here in the finance department here. I'm sure you're well aware about the technical aspects of water metering in the city of Hamilton. I came across a situation this year in regards to a water bill. I'm an owner of a small business in Hamilton called Little Caesars. It's downtown Hamilton. Been an owner for over 16 years there. We've moved locations from one location because of the LRT from King Street to Main Street. We've come across a lot of hardships and times. I'm sure you know competition is fierce, especially in pizza, especially in small businesses in Hamilton. And we struggle at times with expenses and trying to stay alive. In saying that, last year we received a shocking water bill of over a $6,057 mischarge over, I see, a 9-month period here. I inquired about it, obviously, as anyone would, and what I've submitted here, I don't know if you have it, are the statement of account there from the satellite and some bills after the reading. And if you could see at the beginning of this in 2023, there were water bills, 2024 at the bottom there, my water bills were regular at an average rate. Okay, sorry. At an average rate of $120, $119. Then all of a sudden in a nine-month period, it got jacked up to about, $6,000 more dollars. And then I've also included in your package there is after March 2025, my water bills. Now my water bills have gone down substantially to where they should be, $120, $125. And if you take a look at the last page, you'll see the last 6 months, and you'll see the graph, which I'm sure we all have water bills. We love to compare month to month, and we look at it and we see, well, how does it go so high and so low, up and down? So a little bit of a background. Back in 2024, we share a space with a Ruffins pet center, and they installed a couple wash bays back at the beginning of this. And apparently originally they received the bill of the $6,000 overcharge. And apparently they had discussions with Electra and the city, and that bill was dismissed, and then all of a sudden was passed on to us, just like that. So my concern is that how one of our neighboring business had the exact same bill. I guess the city went in, redid their thing, remeasured, and concluded that, well, maybe it should be passed on to us on our bill. But coincidentally enough, they put in 2 wash bays for dog washes. And from experience, I understand they use a lot of water. So I'm questioning that part. I know you'll probably hear from staff today about, technical aspects of water metering, how it's been certified, and how you go into how the staff goes theirs and make sure the water meter's working and all that. I guess that's just one word against another word. I'm not too sure on the merits of the technical aspect of that. And I mean, that's for you to decide whether the water meters were right or whether they were wrong. But in saying that, I just like to conclude that I just want you to put away all those merits for the time being and just concentrate on the numbers that I provided you in front of you. And I'm not here to run from any bills. I've been a taxpayer here in the city of Hamilton all my life, in residence, in this great city. I've had businesses. I've paid a lot of money in taxes, in water bills. And I just want to say that I'm asking you here today not to dismiss this, because I understand the city needs to collect money. I'm not just too sure on whose fault it is. This water main, you might hear from the city that this has been an estimate, and this was back 3 years ago when they decided to, when I used the water, apparently. It's a very confusing situation, and at the end of the day, I'm asking the Finance Committee, which I'm sure you have this ability to do, is to do a 50% share cost on this water bill. I'm not looking to just throw it away. As a citizen, I feel that I should be paying something to the city. So if you would consider a 50% discount or share on this bill, I would really appreciate it as a small business owner. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegate, please? Okay, seeing none, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Moving on to 6.1A, FCS 25057, Water Billing Dispute Delegation in Ward 3, item 6.1. Any questions for staff on the memo? Councillor Beatty.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Just wondering if there's a quick overview. I've read through the report again, but maybe a verbal update. I see Shane is capably here and probably anticipating a question. I see Kirk also, Clayton, the whole team. Just a response to perhaps some of the suggestions from the delegates and or high-level overview, and if there were solutions that were possibly discussed with the business owner at some point. Through you, Chair.
Who wants to start? You named a lot of people there, Councillor Beatty, so go ahead.
Good morning, Shane McCauley, Director of Water Wastewater Operations, through the Chair. Thank you very much for the question. The high-level scenario here is this property is set up as primary with satellite meters. So there is one primary meter that all the water goes through, and then a couple of the units have sub-meters to it. And so when the billing takes place, excuse me, they take the total consumption of that primary meter, subtract the sub-meters from that, so the sub-meters get billed individually, and then whatever's left over gets billed to the primary meter. In this particular case, back in 2023, the end of 2023, one of the sub-meters, our customer's sub-meter, the touchpad stopped reading. The meter was still functioning, but they were not able to get reads from the touchpad. So what happens in that case is Electra will estimate the account based on historical usage until they can get proper reads. That consumption was underestimated over the 2-year period of which they were getting estimates. And so that consumption was being billed to the primary meter. So they were getting overbilled on the primary meter. The submeter was being underbilled on their actual usage. When we're able to make the repairs, get actual reads, we're able to get reads from the submeter and from the primary meter and reconcile that. And so the primary meter got a credit. Our customer received a debit for the excess water that was actually used through that meter. And so that's the situation there. To the comments about the additional sinks and changes with the Ruffins Pet Store, that's internal plumbing that is beyond the city's purview. So it's really up to the property owner to make sure that the plumbing hasn't changed. And that is something that I would encourage the customer to investigate. If the plumbing is tapped into their side somehow and the water is going through their meter, that is really up to the customers to look into and to figure out.
Thank you, Director. Anyone else to add to that? We're good? All right, Councillor Beatty?
Just as a quick follow-up, I guess the second part, and I'm sorry that I put a lot of words at the beginning. Was there any conversation about a potential resolution, or it basically comes down to it's internal within the building and it's not the city's purview? If you could just clarify that.
Through the councillor, that is correct. The potential resolution is the city's billing, and Director Weaver could comment on that, is we do have a payment plan. So as opposed to taking a hit all at once, they could spread this out over a 1-year period.
Councillor Beatty?
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on the memo? Councillor Cooper, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. I know when it comes to gas, there's a legislative requirement that there has to be an actual reading once a year. Okay? And so, you know, I think most people, when they get their bills, they take the approach where, yes, this is how much I have to pay, but it allows them to see where they are and do corrective action, whether it's aligning with where they think they should be or they shouldn't be. So I understand how it can be kind of challenging to manage it when you're getting a series of estimates, especially over a 2-year period. What is our policy on actually having actuals? Do we, similar to the gas company, require that once a year we need to have an actual? Or can this run on in perpetuity, and then when someone gets around to it, we finally get an actual? Like, what's our policy on that?
Who wants to take that question? Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, our practice is to actually read the meters every month. So we endeavor to get reads every single month for all of our customers. Where there's a defect or an inability to read, whether it's because of a broken wire on the touchpad or we can't get to the touchpad because it's behind a locked gate or whatever the case is, our city policies allow us to estimate that account, and there is no time limit within that within our bylaw or our purview and policies around how long an account can be estimated. Certainly, our goal is not to have accounts estimated for a long period of time, but it does happen from time to time.
Councillor Cooper?
Through you, Chair. So if we were to think of, I don't know, say a 1 year or 2 year period, how many other situations like this do we have where we've been in an estimate situation for, say, 2 years? I guess the example here is 2 years. How many situations like that would we have?
Through the chair, estimates are an ongoing challenge for the city for various reasons. Some are technical, some are access, as I've mentioned. To put it into context, we have approximately 160,000 water meters in the city. They're read every single month. That's just under 2 million reads for the city to manage. The fact that we are not in front of AFNA very often, this committee, with billing issues, I think is a testament to the fact that overall our rate is really good as far as obtaining actual reads. I'd also just like to add that at any time on an estimate, the customer can take a read and submit that. They can call it in and we will adjust the bill. So it is clearly identified on the bill that it is being estimated, and that if they'd like to submit a read, they can call into a lector with the actual read, and that would be adjusted as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I would be hopeful that, you know, when we see a situation like this come up, that we might be able to develop some policies around, you know, what is an acceptable time period to get an actual. And if that speaks to the fact that we need to do corrective action around fixing whatever needs to be fixed, that we would, you know, it would stimulate some action on our part. But I would like to see that going forward, if we could get a policy in place similar to the gas company that says in a certain time period, I'm not defining what that is, that we would get an actual, and it would also drive this corrective action so that our customers can be responsive to this, because really this is also about conservation. If people don't know what their meters are, they can't conserve, right? And so that's where I'm just hopeful that if this comes up again, we would have that kind of policy in place. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have no one else on my speakers list, so I need a mover and seconder. I don't think I have one yet to receive 6.1 and 6.1A. Councillor Beatty, Councillor Maureen Wilson, and show of hands, please. And that carries. Thank you. 7.1, PW 24070A, Water Meter Program Audit and Water Billing Service Transition Project. Quick overview, members, or are we good? We have someone here that can provide a very brief overview. Go ahead.
Thank you. And through the chair, back in 2022, the Auditor General completed an audit of our water meter program, and that was related to a number of high billing complaints that we had, back bills that we had experienced. Out of that audit, they came up with 9 recommendations. 6 of those recommendations have been completed, and there are 3 outstanding. And those outstanding items are really related to automation of workflows, coordination with our billing agent on work orders, and making sure that that's automated and there's proper reporting. As you can appreciate, with our cyber incident and our moving the utility billing in-house, a lot of those actions can't be finalized until those projects are completed. That's why the 3 are still outstanding, waiting for implementation of our software systems and bringing the utility billing in-house next year. So our anticipation is that we will have these 3 remaining items completed in 2026.
Okay, committee members, there's your overview. Any questions? Councillor Beatty.
Just very quickly, how do I phrase this? We're in the process of the transition. The transition we know has had a few obstacles. We've had reports coming before this body in terms of needing to delay the implementation. We just had the recent news that we had to sign up 53,000 auto withdrawals that weren't part of the original calculation. Is there any impact on the rollout of the program that could be impacted by the implementation of the recommendations in the report? Any future delays that would be anticipated as a result?
Through the chair, the implementation of the recommendations from this report would not impact those projects. It's in fact the other way around. The implementation of those projects would impact our ability to complete these audit recommendations, because it really is about automation and reporting. And so we rely on those systems and that transition to take place first.
Thank you. I think that I didn't articulate it very well. I'm just trying to anticipate the correlation from an operational lens if these recommendations had an operational implication that would cause future delays, but it sounds like they are unrelated. So thank you.
Okay, no one else on the speakers list. I don't know if I got a mover and seconder. I did not. Councillor Beatty? Councillor Cooper? Second to move this report?
So, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. We're going to, unless I missed you moving on to 7.2, we're going to receive both of those together.
Okay. 7.2, PW 24071, Stormwater Asset Management, investigation of recent sewage leaks audit. Someone want to provide a quick overview on that one? You're getting a lot of airtime this morning. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Very similar to this one, an audit was conducted following the Burlington Street and Rutherford spills by the Internal Auditor General. They came through with 5 different recommendations. 3 of those have been completed. There are 2 remaining recommendations, and much like the meter audit, they relate to software efficiencies, making sure that our systems are coordinated between our geospatial systems, our work order systems, and those are all projects that are also ongoing at this point. And so until those projects are complete, the remaining 2 items remain open, and we are expecting hopefully in 2026 that those projects will be completed and we'll be able to complete the remaining 2 audit items, recommendations.
Thank you, Director. Any questions? Okay, I have no one on my speakers list. We're going to try this again. I'm going to take a mover and second for 7.1 and 7.2. All right. Show of hands. And that carries. 8.1, AUD 25010, Fraud and Waste Annual Report. Auditor General Charles Brown, please come forward for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'm Charles Brown, Auditor General, and I'm here to present our 6th annual Fraud and Waste Report. Our goal with this report is to provide an overview of whistleblower fraud and waste matters that come to our attention during the year that ended June 30th, 2025. No, I just missed. As you know, the Fraud and Waste Hotline is a key tool at our disposal, providing a confidential and anonymous service, independently operated, available 24/7 to employees and members of the public for them to report suspicions of wrongdoing or make complaints about government waste and inefficiency. By encouraging reporting of concerns, we strive to protect city assets, improve operations, be more efficient, effective, and transparent as a city, and build trust and confidence in government. For this most recent year, we received a total of 148 complaints, which is up 16% from the prior year. Overall, with the reports that have been closed this year, the substantiation rate of allegations made was 32%. So last year it was 33%, and it seems to go back and forth between 32, 33% every year. This shows the breakdown of the general types of complaints that we receive. As you can see, most prevalent are those related to social services, also with service complaints, waste and integrity complaints making up most of the rest. In terms of the sources of our complaints, it's almost equal between employee reports and members of the public. So 49% employee and 51% citizens. In breaking down the 148 reports we received, there were 35 that came directly to us, so not through the hotline, just to give you an idea of how extensively used the hotline is. And 113 that were reported directly through the hotline, so we call those that come in directly to us by email or perhaps even a phone call or a meeting, we call those proxies. Here presented are the various actions taken on the 148 complaints we received. 62 were referred to other business areas for review and report back. When we get the report back, we then evaluate the response to consider if any further action is warranted. 16 were referred out with no requirement for a report back, and 52 were not actionable or out of jurisdiction. They're not relevant, perhaps, to city operations. They belong being reported to police or something of that sort. For 14, we launched our own investigation. This slide shows the disposition of all the cases that were outstanding during the year. 52 were substantiated or partially substantiated. 40 were unsubstantiated. 28 are in progress. 70 were no further action or else referred out. And that's how we got to the overall substantiation rate of 32%. This slide shows the different outcomes related to investigations that we've done, and as well the report backs that we've received. 1 termination, 18 other HR actions. The total value of loss or waste associated with the complaints this year is $125,000. And there is a bright spot this year in that the city was able to recover $502,000 in previous losses. I'm going to move on to some of the summaries of significant allegations that we investigated, and I'll briefly describe those. The first one is a complaint about waste collection, where it was alleged the contractor's employees accepted bribes from residents to go off route or remove extra or non-compliant waste. These were substantiated. There was a municipal program that had $6,500 in locked cash stolen from it, and it all came down to weak security controls and minimal oversight. The area was not adhering to appropriate cash handling protocols per the cash handling policy. I think I skipped one. Next is a case of theft and personal use of city equipment by an employee that was substantiated. The employee was permitted to resign. Previously, we reported on a plans examiner that was charged with breach of trust by police. Those charges were stayed, meaning suspended, in effect indefinitely, in the fall of 2024. Our own investigation of the matter revealed weaknesses in program administration, so we made a report with recommendations to management to avoid occurrences in the future. Next, we received multiple allegations with respect to conflict of interest associated with an employee's secondary employment. The employment was confirmed, but there was no formal declaration of conflict by the employee. We found that in this case, supervisors did not see the need for a conflict declaration. The employee relied on supervisory management in good faith, so we regarded this as more of a procedural lapse. In the course of looking into it, though, we developed other concerns that the employee was engaged in work for secondary employment whilst on medical leave for the city. However, the employee would not provide sufficient information regarding their outside work to make a conclusive determination. And this led us to examine existing policies regarding outside employment and to obtain advice from legal services. Overall, we concluded that the current policy lacks sufficient guidance and particulars on how to identify when a potential conflict is to be reported and how, and by what means outside employment can and should be monitored. The employee resigned prior to the completion of the investigation. One complaint we received was that the city was wasting money by pouring excessive amounts of concrete in sidewalks. We did a small sample of 45 sections and found net overpouring to an estimated value of $10,000. We reported our findings to management, including other issues found and areas for improvement, such as the measurement of what is being actually put down, as well as the estimation process. We are continuing to work with Transportation Division on analysis of a 5-year cumulative estimate. Another complaint relates to an employee who was working at the city, who was also working at an outside employment as a realtor, but it was not disclosed until after our investigation inquiries. The next complaint is about 3 employees allegedly committing time theft. This was substantiated. And next is an update to the imposter vendor scam, where payments totaling $274,000 were directed to the imposter's bank account through a fraudulent change in the vendor's bank account information for electronic funds transfer. According to our information, no charges have been laid, and it is strongly suspected that the perpetrators, still unknown, conducted the scam from within the United States. And this one is an update to the other vendor imposter scam, where the loss was $552,000. As you recall, we managed to freeze $417,000 of these funds through a court order, and we have now recovered the funds, which accounts for the bulk of recoveries this year. We've also filed for restitution of the balance of the city's loss and expenses. And police have also charged an individual with fraud over $5,000, possession of property obtained by crime over $5,000, and laundering the proceeds of crime. Sorry about that. Next complaint was about a commemorative program and a donation made by a resident. The donor raised concerns that their donation wasn't used as intended. We found their concerns to be valid, and management agreed to refund the donation and make process improvements to avoid this type of thing reoccurring. Finally, we looked into a tender where the lowest bidder was awarded the contract, notwithstanding that shortly after the award, it was discovered that a key requirement of the tender was not in place at the time of the bid. However, this was a very nuanced situation, so we engaged outside legal counsel to provide an opinion and give advice. They did provide advice on the best course of action to proceed, and as well, they gave recommendations to improve the tender process and avoid similar risks and issues in the future. So, next couple of slides is talking about many of our recommendations are issued through management letters to senior management of the business area. And this past year, we issued 130 such recommendations. I'll just briefly go over what areas those are in. So there were 23 that respecting improvements to accounts payable, 23 for improvement of internal controls over cash handling, 6 relating to the code of conduct, 1 respecting conflict of interest with respect to vendors, 26 covering contract management, 43 related to improving service delivery, 2 to improve financial reporting and budgeting, and 6 to strengthen recruiting and retention. In terms of what stands out to us regarding general areas of needed improvement and risk, we're seeing a continued need for improving contract management capabilities, exposure to undisclosed or poorly mitigated conflicts of interest this year, and more in relation to secondary employment, as you saw. The need for vigilance in respect of cyber fraud exposure and benefits fraud. A necessity for increasing controllership knowledge and skills generally. And finally, this was our second highest volume of complaints in 6 years, so our hotline continues to be well used. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Auditor General. We do have some people on the speakers list, but before we do that, mover and seconder put the report on the floor. Councillor Critch, Councillor Maureen Wilson, thank you. Councillor Critch, please go ahead. Maureen Wilson up next.
Thanks very much. You always deliver these presentations in such a sort of tone that makes it seem like it's a matter of fact. And so my first question for you is, generally speaking, about your level of concern about these issues. What I see if I read this through is that people are accepting bribes, there's fraud going on in various different ways, and given the size of the organization, I understand that generally speaking, how human nature works is there's going to be some of these things that do occur. How do you feel in terms of your comfort level for this? Because you're getting these things, based on your discussion here, from a hotline, my question is kind of about a canary in a coal mine to a certain extent, so I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair. Well, I guess my answer to that would be it's challenging to put it in perspective, because as you know, last year we had, I think when you totaled up the vendor scams, it was something in the order of $800,000 in loss. So thankfully, we didn't have anything like that this year. It is not that. But I still think that these are important issues for us to at least address in terms of the control and the controllership, particularly the ones I mentioned, contract management. It continues to come up as an issue. If you recall, I think it was a couple of years ago, we delivered a report on Greatmire Arena. Contract management, project management is prominent in that report that we did, and I don't think I'm telling any secrets in regards to contract management and how that might come up in the report we're doing on the Barton Tiffany as well. So I think it's important to take care of and be aware. And when I say things like controllership, risk management, project management, I don't mean just amongst professional controllers like the finance area. I mean the skills that all management should have. There are core skills in controllership and project management. I think those capabilities in risk management, I think they need to be inculcated into the culture of how we manage things.
Thanks. And through the chair, I think I understand your point about the difference in the monetary loss. And so, maybe the monetary losses are different from year to year. I'm not really asking specifically about that as much as I want to understand the ethical problem we're faced with. My question is really about trust in the city. If we see people accepting, whether our contractors or our employees, whomever it might be, accepting bribes and committing fraud, doesn't really give the public much confidence that the city of Hamilton is holding itself to any kind of ethical standard. I mean, that's just how it reads to people when they see that. They see that people are accepting bribes, committing fraud, and when we're reporting it back, we're saying we're going to improve processes, right? And that kind of is usually the response is we're going to improve processes. Some of these things are recurring, as you described, right? So I'm wondering what you sense or what your sense is about the overall reputational risk to the city is with this kind of thing. And is this just kind of par for the course because of the nature of the size of the organization? Like, I'm looking for more of I guess, a forensic analysis from you about what is this saying?
Well, at the risk of, I haven't done an analysis, if you just want an off the cuff. I mean, I think generally it's improving slowly, but there's still a long ways to go, is how I would characterize it.
That's actually very helpful, to know that it's somewhat an improvement is being made and that there's some effectiveness, I guess, in the hotline and these kinds of things. My second question is about fraud in general. And so without you having to expound too much, I wanted to ask you about the cases of fraud where you find things to be substantiated or unsubstantiated. So when I looked through the report, there was different situations where fraud was substantiated, some places where it wasn't. And so when you're doing a fraud investigation, you're looking at financial records, you're looking at different kinds of things. What level of detail do you go to? If you get to a point where you can't evaluate and can't make a determination, how do you qualify or quantify that? So sometimes I wonder about that, where you get into something and say it's maybe unsubstantiated. Sometimes is it because you weren't able to get information? Would you say that? I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better, because I'm assuming every case it's different, but overall I'm just trying to understand your reporting process, and if you come across a barrier, do you mention that, or how does that work?
So we have three different possible results, maybe four. Substantiated or partially substantiated, if that's one or two, not substantiated or inconclusive. And it all depends on the evidence that we're able to gather and whether or not we, meet the threshold on a civil standard. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a criminal standard. It's more of a standard, more likely than not, a civil standard for how we judge these things. And that all depends on the evidence that we're able to conclude with. Some of that comes from interviews, some of it comes from statistic. It's usually a combination of everything, and the weight of all of those things combined kind of puts it over a threshold.
Councillor?
Thanks, those are my questions. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Councillor Maureen Wilson.
Thank you. As always, thank you for your work. Excuse me. My first question is making sure I understand that which is in recommendation number 2. If I could speak to the report as well, or would you actually, Chair, prefer I stick to the presentation?
You mean in the report itself?
Yeah. I have
The
a
committee
question.
report?
It is a matter that was raised during the presentation, but it is specific to the wording of the report. Would you?
I would definitely allow you some latitude
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
Maureen.
Lots of latitude
Councillor.
this week. Thank you. When I'm reading recommendation 2, Auditor General, and of course my screen just went blank.
Just looking for it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just read it. I don't,
Sure.
I
That-
have so many papers.
That senior leadership team be directed to investigate new and enhanced methods to improve awareness among employees of what is a conflict of interest and how to report them as required per the Code of Conduct for Employees. And then the report back is suggested for May of next year.
Right. So,
What, if I could just make.
Sure.
So when I read that recommendation, it reads to me that it seems to suggest that the problem is that we're not communicating what the existing code is, and we have to maybe explore different ways. But when you were speaking to what you were finding, you said that the current policy lacks guidance and particulars on what and how that which is to be reported and how outside employment is to be allowed. So if you could just help me square this. In your remarks, I interpreted your remarks to mean the policy itself has to have an overhaul. But when I read the recommendations, and this is my problem, I'm sure, it seems to be suggesting that we're not overhauling anything. We just have to lean in how to better communicate it to employees. Can you help me understand what you mean, maybe?
correct.
Into?
So the more general recommendation that you allude to is just that. It's more general about, because we see continuing issues with conflict of interest, that we need, I think we need better awareness. And because an example is the situation that I raised. You had an employee that went to their supervisors declaring, in this case, it was associated with secondary employment. But in our view, it was a clear conflict that required formal disclosure, and in their view, it wasn't. And, you know, that's the issue. We need more, perhaps, guidance, both generally, but more specifically with the secondary employment situations, because that in particular strikes us as being a bit vague on what, how to evaluate that particular type of conflict of interest and how to address it on an ongoing basis. How do you know if the employee has taken very, you know, they may declare at the outset it's very casual work, and then it becomes more routine, an almost second job, and we wouldn't be aware of that. So that's the type of issue addressed, but it reflects what we say about the secondary employment situation does reflect a continuing, I think, need for awareness and vigilance on the part of senior leadership, which is what we're expressing in the recommendation. I know that the Human Resources has done a lot of work to change the code of conduct, and they have made improvements, but those improvements need to be translated into action by senior management. They need to be, I think, inculcated into their thinking and awareness and action.
Okay, thank you. So the policy, in summary, the policy is going to remain the same. It's just the methods in which we employ that policy is what you're directing staff to report back on.
And plus, we would also recommend further actual work on the secondary employment situation.
Okay. If I could ask, it may be outside the purview of your findings, but do you have any comment to offer on, is there part of the organization which you're seeing there's a greater prevalency of secondary employment than others? Is it the way I'm just looking?
No, I don't see any, through you, Chair, I don't see any area more prevalent than another.
Okay, thank you. And I think maybe my second question may be more appropriate for the Executive Director of Human Resources, but I am curious about what is the obligation of the municipality as an employee. You referenced, I think, at least two, for sure, one, instances where theft had been substantiated and the employee was allowed to retire. I thought
Oh, the one where the employee was allowed to resign.
resign, beg your pardon. So I guess my question is, does that, if it was substantiated, does the city document that result in the employee's file? And if the city was asked for a reference, would we be reporting on that which was substantiated through the chair?
I think
Through
that's
the
a
chair,
question
I'll
for,
refer that
yeah.
to-
E.D. Fontana?
Through the chair, Laura Fontana, Executive Director of Human Resources. Thank you for the question, Councillor. Depending on the circumstances, if it is something significant in terms of theft or fraud, we do report it to Hamilton Police. It is in the event that someone is terminated or they're allowed to retire or resign, we do make a note in the file, and we also have a do not hire, rehire list. So in the event that there is some potential opportunity for them to be considered for another position at the city, we do have a record of those circumstances, and they're not permitted to be rehired.
Councillor?
Thank you. The second part of my question is, do we have an obligation to share that which was substantiated if another municipality is seeking a reference check with?
Through the chair, if there's we don't conduct reference checks unless we get approval from the employee. And in these circumstances, I would suggest that we wouldn't be seeking any approval, and we would decline any reference request.
Sorry, just checking, is that our policy?
The policy speaks to the approval process, but we would do a comprehensive review of the circumstances, and in cases where someone has that kind of history and potentially a do not rehire indicated, we wouldn't be seeking their approval to provide the reference check.
Sorry, I'm just not, they've applied, for example, they've resigned or retired. They've applied for another position of employment with an adjacent municipality. A supervisor calls one of our supervisors doing, this person has been shortlisted, just checking on their performance. What do we do then through the chair?
So through the chair, we would ask the employee permission to conduct the reference check on their behalf. In circumstances where, in cases where they've been terminated or they're do not rehire, we would not proceed with checking with that employee to do the reference check. We would simply decline the reference request.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I have Councillor Clark, followed by Councillor Cooper and Councillor Alex Wilson. Councillor Clark, please.
Good morning, Chair Spatafor. My apologies for being tardy. I had a medical appointment.
Good morning.
I have a question about Appendix C to the report. And I think it's great that you're providing recommendations, Auditor General Brown, to staff as you find things that could improve our business process and governance process. You're making, I think it's 130 recommendations in Appendix C that have been made to staff. How do you track whether or not staff are following up and, I guess, resolving or implementing the recommendation would be a better word?
Auditor General.
Through the chair. So they do report back to us on the completion, but I will say that that's an area that's evolving for us, just the sheer volume, to be able to track that. We do have detailed lists of the recommendations themselves and tracking the report backs. I'm reporting these sort of in categories here because these recommendations are born out of investigations which we're obliged to. We're sensitive about the privacy of and disclosure of individuals. that's why we present them this way here. That's not to say that behind the scenes we're not tracking them. So if we have issues, we would definitely go back to the management area that concerns the recommendation and ask what has happened. But I do have to admit to you that that's an area that we have to mature in a formal sense.
I think that would be an excellent idea, and I know it's the volume of work that you and your team are doing is unbelievable. And the savings and assistance that you provided the municipality, we're truly indebted to you because you have really helped us a great deal. Your statement that we're improving slowly, I think is apt. But in this particular file, I just don't want all these recommendations to get lost and shelved somewhere. And so that's why I'm inquiring to make sure that your expert advice is actually being considered by staff and implementing new policy to resolve the issue that you have raised. And so I'm hearing from you that you're going to work with staff on that to continue that process.
Through the chair, that's correct. And also, we do come back to these when we do an audit.
Yes.
When we actually do an audit, say if the finance area or accounts payable, you know, the first stop is any previous audit reports or management letters and that sort of thing. So it's not like it's going to get lost in the shuffle. It's just a matter of time.
Quick comment, Mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. You know, I can recall, I think it was in my second term on council, where I raised potential conflicts of interest with employees working outside of Hamilton and also doing business with Hamilton on the side. And I had no traction from the city manager at the time and the staff. It was considered a non-issue. They have a right to do these things. We've come a long way from where we were. I know you're saying we're moving slowly, but the work that you have done to help educate senior leadership team about the challenges with codes of conducts for employees who are doing business outside of the city, working outside of the city, while still employed for the city, and the inherent risk of conflicts between them, that's invaluable. And I know we're slowly educating our staff, but your audits also educate staff. So thank you for what you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Excellent report this morning, Auditor General. When I think about where we find ourselves, we had a cybersecurity attack. Many organizations similar to ourselves has their control environment embedded in their technology. So the fact that we don't have technology tells me that we have a problem with our control environment. When I see the number of amount of fraud that we're seeing here, I don't find it particularly surprising because of our controls are all missing. And so I'd be interested in your comment on the control environment, because right now we can't even do audits. We haven't done audits for 3 years. So usually I would look to an external audit report to at least get some comfort from a material misstatement, material, anything coming up, fraud and all that. But we're not even doing that right now. So now we're looking at you, because you're like almost like our last level of defense to say, where are we in our control environment, and should we, to me, when you don't have your technology systems in place and you rely on them, it's like the wild, wild west. I'm interested in your comments on that.
So through the chair, technology is wonderful, technology is effective, but technology is not a panacea. Mm-hmm. And we saw that with the change of banking information vendor scam, right? You can have all the technology in the world, but if someone accepts a banking change, and it's basically a human error to accept that and enter it into the system, there's no amount of technology that will help. So I think the most important thing from a controllership point of view is vigilance across the board in whatever role. Don't depend on technology so much that you think it will do your job for you. That's my position. I'm old-fashioned, but I think from my years of experience, that's what I've seen. There's always an element of poor vigilance in this. There are some that are pure technological mistakes or errors and whatnot, but most situations that I see in Hamilton relate to vigilance and having good, solid processes backed up by human oversight and intervention.
Through you, Chair, and is your assessment that we have that right now, the proper level of vigilance?
Well, it's improving. I can say that we've had situations reported to, for the example that I've mentioned, you know, where attempted changes in banking information have now been stopped. So that's wonderful news to me.
Through you, Chair. So then your assessment would be, because our technology is not in place, that you don't really see like we have a greater risk, or because of the vigilance we have in place, or how are you?
In my assessment, the biggest risk now is the evolution of the technology, because while you're evolving, it's potentially unstable. So last year, for example, after the cyber incident, you know, we were concerned about the potential risks of all the workaround procedures. And so we did a special audit to look at those, but those continue to evolve. And so there's always some potential risk with the evolution. Once it's the technology is installed and it's had a period of stability through which that you develop and harden your processes around the technology, I think that's the most stable place to be.
Through you, Chair. So we're finding things happening after the fact, so it's reactive, and then you're trying to build some change into the system through your recommendations, so we don't experience this again. But you know, we've talked several times around putting into the City of Hamilton an enterprise risk framework, okay, with risk appetite and all that. Can you speak to what role ERM would have in proactively steering us away from these fraudulent situations? Just what your perspective would be. Would that be something that would help us so that we wouldn't be, you know, finding things after they've happened, and we'd be dealing with the situations in a proactive way?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that question, because I'm very much a proponent of enterprise risk management, not just for the fraud risk, for all risks. That's why it's called enterprise risk management, because it's all areas where we're potentially ineffective in delivering service to the city are affected by how well you cover off the various risks, which are all different depending on what business area you run. Some might be more financial, but some might be more in the area of good service to citizens, or even safety to citizens would be the primary risk. But the whole value of enterprise risk management, to my mind, is to inculcate that culture and thinking so that everyone can understand what risks they face and how well they're being managed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. My last speaker, Councillor Alex Wilson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, just a couple questions about the substantiation rates, and if you noticed any trends kind of breaking that down a little bit further. So looking at, I saw your breakdown of reports was about 50-50 between city employees and members of the community. Was there a difference in substantiation rates or any trends noticed, kind of thinking about those two groups?
Through you, Chair, I don't know if I have analyzed that. I look to Deputy Auditor General Bridget Menard.
Deputy?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. We don't report on that, but we are able to provide that to this committee subsequent to this meeting. If there is a desire for that, we can share that via an email to all committee members. We would just need to pull the statistics.
Councillor?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. The reason I ask is I think if a trend is present, and I don't know if a trend is, I think it's just interesting information from a continuous improvement perspective. So for example, in a hypothetical situation where there's a higher substantiation rate from employee calls, maybe they have more access to information, they're reporting at a higher threshold, who knows? I could imagine that could be the case for many reasons. How are we making sure that employees are aware of this and there's a proliferation and encouraged use if we're seeing collective value in this process and we're seeing a difference in substantiation rate, just making sure that those who have access to information who are closest to these concerns are accessing the hotline. But if there's not a trend line, or if the trend looks like an opposite direction, I think that still also gives us just these insights in where these reports are coming from, how to encourage, where does this need to be more accessible, but also is there any spaces where we're not hearing from someone? Is that a potential missed opportunity or just that piece? So I'd be interested if there is a trend when that analysis is done or if it is done in the future. And similarly interested in the substantiation rate in kind of categories. So for example, if there was a very high or low substantiation rate in the social services, for example, I think that was at the top of the chart as the highest kind of category of complaints. If we're getting a large volume of complaints, but there's a trend that those complaints aren't necessarily substantiated or they are substantiated, I think that just level is interesting to note when there's trends in substantiation. So I'll again ask if that information is available or if it could quickly kind of be shared, but otherwise just interested in if trends could be seen if they exist and reported in the future, and if no trends exist, if that information could also just be shared at a high level.
Auditor?
Yeah, for sure, we can do that. And we can probably provide a number in the coming weeks to this committee.
Okay. Councillor Wilson?
Through you, Chair, I appreciate all the work done throughout the year on this report, and that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other speakers. I think my only comment for me is I know Councillor Coop and I will be working on something from an ERM standpoint to bring that forward to ensure that's something we're doing. So possibly at the next Audit and Finance meeting, we'll see something on ERM. I think I have a mover and a seconder. Clerk, yay. This is an electronic vote, so it might take some time to get populated. That is our first vote. So we'll wake up the computer and vote once it pops up. And this vote is to approve the recommendations in the report. And the vote is up. Kind of. Thumbs up, Councillor Clark? Yeah. And that carries 8-0. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2, FCS 25056, 2026 temporary borrowing and interim tax levy bylaw. Mover and seconder to put the report on the floor. Anybody? Somebody, please. Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Beattie. Any questions for staff? Councillor Cooper, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you, I was, this might just be part of our normal update cycle, but as I read through this, it's been a while since we've actually exercised this policy, it looks like. And so I'm just wondering, where do we find ourselves right now? Do we think that we might be using this in the near term to do some temporary borrowing?
I think I know the answer, but Jim Zagaric.
Through the chair, Mike Zagaric, General Manager, Finance Corporate Services. The last time I believe that the city exercised the authority with respect to temporary borrowing, I believe was 1998, and it coincided with the transition to market value assessment and some delays. We aren't expecting to have to exercise the authority that we're seeking under this report. It's more of a housekeeping, just in case there were to be some sort of a catastrophic incident that would cause delays in being able to bill or collect taxes. That's the first part of the report. The second part of the report is seeking the authority to exercise interim billing for 2026. This is a practice that all municipalities have, and we are seeking the authority to tax out with respect to the first 2 quarters of the year at 50% of 2025's tax rates. So that provides some collection of cash until such time as the budget's approved, tax policies are approved, and then we can do the final 2 tax installments capturing the approved and adopted tax budget.
Thank you, GM. Councillor Cooper?
Through you, Chair. So just in terms of operationalizing this policy where we'd be going out to do temporary borrowing, I know it's been a long time since we've done this, but would there be a notification coming to council that we'd be going out and doing temporary borrowing when this was, if this actually ever gets operationalized?
GM?
Through the chair, yes, I would expect if we needed to go out, whether it's a line of credit, some sort of a bank note or some exercise temporary borrowing, we would report back as to why and what the circumstances were.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
very
you. Councillor Clark?
Councillor Cooper asked my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No other speakers on the list. Electronic vote, please. The vote is up. That carries 8-0. Thank you. 8.3, Grant Subcommittee Minutes from November 5th. The mover and seconder to put the Grant Subcommittee Minutes on the floor. Councillor Taddison. Councillor Alex Wilson? Perfect. Any questions for staff on this? Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Item 8.1 in the minutes, item B indicates that there's an appendix. So that was an appendix that was provided to the committee. And we don't see that appendix here.
Who would like to take that as to, do appendixes usually get included? And
Through the chair, I can answer that question.
okay, quick, go ahead.
With this switch from committee reports to minutes, appendices are no longer attached to minutes when they go up to the next committee.
Councillor
So
Clark.
I understand the policy change, Chair Spatafor. I guess the question is, when we're now dealing with recommendations in the minutes, we don't have access to what it is referencing to. And that's a bit of a challenge. So just ask the clerks to take it back and look at it and make sure that we're getting what we need to get when we're making, because we're ratifying these decisions without data.
Yeah, I will take that back to the clerk. That appendix, of course, is always available on the grants subcommittee minutes, but I will take that comment back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Anyone else on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the electronic vote, please. Vote is up. That carries 8-0. Thank you. 8.4, amendment to the OBL. 8.4AA AUD 25005 is the item. Mover and second to approve the amendment to the OBL, please. Councillor Maureen Wilson. Councillor Crutch, thank you. Any questions? Hopefully not. Perfect. Electronic vote. Vote is up. That carries 8-0. Thank you. I don't believe we have any motions. We do not have any notices, I don't believe. Good. Private and confidential is up next. So mover and seconder to move into closed session respecting items 11.1 and 11.2. Councillor Clark, thank you. Councillor Beatty, seconder. Councillor Beatty, yes. And pursuant to section 9.3 subsections A, B, and D of the city's procedural bylaw 21-021 as amended, and section 2392 subsections A, B, D of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to the security of property of the city or a local board, personal matters, or an identifiable individual, including city or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiations. Please indicate your vote now electronically. The vote is up.
Councillor Alex Wilson and Councillor Cooper. Yeah.
I'm in favor. Sorry, I have to refresh for every vote.
Thank you. That carries 8-0. Members of the public, the meeting will continue following the closed session portion of the meeting. When you see the members of the committee rejoin the meeting, committee will wait up to 5 minutes upon reconvening an open session before proceeding with the meeting to provide members of the public and the media time to return. Before we move into closed session, I will ask all members of the public to please exit council chambers and the WebEx meeting now. Thank you. Any staff not directly related to 11.1 are asked to please exit the meeting now as well. And a reminder to all members of the committee to please ensure you moved into the closed session portion of eScribe. I also remind members of the committee that our section 8.7 of the procedural bylaw, the use of personal electronic devices during closed meeting is prohibited, and the use of city electronic devices during closed meetings are limited to text communication only and not as a telephone, recording device, or camera. Staff from the Office of the City Clerk are exempt, subsection 8.7C, when using electronic device for record-keeping purposes. When the clerk has determined that only the appropriate attendees are still in the council chamber and WebEx, we will move on to item 11.1. Okay, we are back in open session. We are going to take a mover and seconder for 11.1 and 11.2. Councillor Beatty, second by Councillor Clark, to receive these reports and for the reports to remain confidential. Show of hands, please. That carries. Thank you. There being no further business of the Audit and Finance Committee, this meeting is adjourned at 11:33 a.m. Have a fantastic day.